Hey guys, it's BlockchainBrad, and as always, it is just a freaking awesome thing to be part of this community, the crypto space. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate your comments, your feedback, your shares, your likes, everything. Cheers to you guys for being part of a great team. Guys, today I wanted to talk to you a bit about Neo, and I'm going to focus solely on Neo news, Neo updates, Neo information. I've got quite a lot packed into a small video, so I'll go pretty fast through it because I haven't uploaded for a while. The other thing I was going to mention is that I'm going to try and make it so it's just one full recording. I'm not going to try and edit too much, so it's going to be a bit different, just so that I can get it out to you guys as quickly as possible. So let's get started. The first thing I want to talk about is obviously the Neo price hike. This only happened in the last 24 hours or less than that, actually, more like in the last 12. And that's all related to the Segwit 2X being cancelled at this stage. So that's looking very good for Neo because, as many of you would know, Bitcoin is utilized as a currency, as a saving mechanism for other altcoins. And even though I don't really like the altcoin term because it separates the values perhaps of a mainstream currency concept, it's great for Neo because whilst it's an ecosystem, it's robust, it's got things happening, it only allows for people to pump more money into that for the long term, not as a pump and dump. So on the screen, guys, you can see it's looking really good. We're hitting the $30 mark now, and only a day ago that was at 26. So it's looking really good in terms of future investments for Neo. Let's move on. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is a fantastic Twitter site, or a fantastic Twitter handle, and that is at Bite Size Capital. You can see there on the screen, and you can see that the name is NM. I've been chatting with him for some time now, for the last week at least, and I have to say, guys, if you want to find some amazing updated information on Neo, this is one of the places, other than my Twitter and a few others, he is certainly one to pay full attention to because he finds links that most people don't find. With regard to that, he found an excellent post about TheKey, and you may have heard of that, but that's a dApp that's coming up on the Neo platform. And it's certainly a partnership that's been forged with Neo and many other key stakeholders in China. So if you want to know more about that, here is TheKey. The title is Unlock the Future, and essentially it is a project that Neo is part of. So Neo is not the fundamental partner of this entire project that's orchestrated from various stakeholders in China, and my understanding is there are governmental interventions as well, and funding sources. But essentially the idea is to set up an identification system by 2020 so that the people in China are registered via some sort of blockchain related ID system. So that's massive, and as I understand it from reading other texts, from having read other posts and websites, my understanding is that by 2020 that's going to become mandatory for the Chinese populace. So it's an absolutely massive thing, and if you want to know more, here's the website, guys. It's really good to understand what the project's about, so you can read more. But if you look down the bottom, you can see the team is substantial. They've won some significant awards already, and they are based in Singapore in terms of their origins, but you can see down here they've partnered with really significant players in the crypto space. One of them is Fiancial. The reason why I mention them is not so much perhaps that it's crypto space, but they are the business space in China. They're the largest fintech company in the world. They are not directly related to Neo by any means, despite the Antshares original name of Neo. But what is important to know is they are directly related to Alibaba, and Alibaba does have, through LawChain and a few other things, it has direct ties with Neo. So it's important to sort of recognize that. Also, Ping'an, it's important just to mention here that Jen Lee, who is one of the key people in Metaverse, she used to work for Ping'an. So my guess at this stage is that Metaverse may try and get involved somehow through this partnership. I'm really not sure. But certainly at this stage, Neo is going to be the key platform, the #1 platform at this stage that this project, TheKey, will be using. And Hongfei, I'll be talking to you a bit about that more in the post, but Hongfei has already alluded to that happening within the next quarter or so. There'll be movements for TheKey to be integrated onto the Neo platform. So it's looking really, really good. And if you want to know more about the other partners, Mikkel from Twitter, if you want to find him, I'll certainly link you to him. He's fantastic at finding research as well. He also mentioned that there are also government links with some of these key partners, so it's worth looking into those partners as well. Just in terms of more information about TheKey, if you want to know about the verification an ID system that they're proposing on TheKey, you can go to Twitter. I found this as an AMA. It was happening on the 9th, so more and more information is coming forth about what essentially TheKey is about and how they're going to utilize Neo. And already Neo's abuzz with the conversation of TheKey and how that will impact on the quality of the Neo ecosystem. So it's really cool, and things like this are happening. The next thing I want to talk to you guys about is NEOContracts. Now, if you're not familiar with NEOContracts, they are one of the key aspects of what makes Neo so great. So you've got Neo Identity, you've got NEOContracts, and you've also got Neo Assets. So they focus a great deal on the economic value of the overall ecosystem, as you guys know, with their title and slogan, the smart economy. But by having NEOContracts, that actually means that they are a bit of a game changer, because they are going to be utilizing that in a lot of the dApps that are coming up, and I'll explain that a bit further. But essentially, if you want to know more about what NEOContracts are, just go to their white paper. They have a specific one for NEOContracts, and you can go and learn about that if you want. Next thing I want to talk to you about is just a post I found from the old Antshares Reddit, and it was valuable because it explained the Chinese relationships with Neo. So it goes into detail about Alibaba to Alipay, and that's important because you'll see a lot of partnerships coming up that broach Ali in some way, Alipay or Alibaba or Antshares. So I thought it's just worthwhile providing this post because it gives some key information as to what the relationships are and how we can perhaps forge a better understanding through our own research of where Neo's going in relation to fintech in China. Okay, the next thing is another Reddit post, and this one was really good. I've mentioned this one before, but I just wanted to go again because there's a great post down the bottom in the conclusion. If you're not familiar with this, it's an Antshares post again, and it explains on-chain Neo and the law chain, which is essentially an affiliate chain or a sub-chain of on-chain. It's not actually part of Neo, but it's important because with NeoX coming up in the first quarter of next year, there's going to be that cross-chain interoperability between the two entities, and LawChain is being part of on-chain is key to business transactions, business development, and forging more blockchain deals in China and abroad. But in the conclusion, this is what I thought was important was that AliCloud, as the core tech of Alibaba Group, has come to recognize our technological competence as well as the potential of the blockchain technology as the whole. We expect a lot of companies to follow suit. So that was said by Hongfei, and because was referencing that and referencing directly about the Alibaba Group, we just can't overlook that, because at the moment, as I said before, with the ID initiative and TheKey, fintech and through Ant Financial, there's some major players and major backers in China, and this just sort of makes it clear that Neo is in the best possible position to benefit from these projects, these very large projects that are supported by the government. So guys, just as I've been referencing Ant Financial, I thought it would be wise to provide some information. So you can check it out on Wikipedia or other sources if you want. But essentially, it's the largest fintech company in the world, and it's an affiliate company. Alipay is an affiliate company of Alibaba Group, and Ant Financial, it is sort of like the overarching framework or the overarching services group for all of these different ventures. So it's just worth checking out. You can see they are absolutely massive, and anytime you see a correlation between Ant Financial and Neo, it's worth paying attention because they have a lot of money behind them, a lot of support, and they're well and truly entrenched in government projects as well. The next thing, guys, I wanted to talk to you about was Thailand. Just some key news that's coming up. Really exciting whenever you see a pair happening with whether it be Neo and the THB or some other pairing, because it just strengthens Neo as transactional currency within the crypto space. So whilst it's not a cryptocurrency by nature and design, it can be utilized as such whenever these pairings happens, which just strengthens the value of the Neo ecosystem even more. So it's really exciting to see that these things are happening. You can check out NeoNewsToday on Twitter. They're an excellent source of information. Likewise, some interesting thing happening with the wallet developments. There's a Morpheus wallet that's come out, and it's looking really good. So there's some stats there provided, but you can check that out on Neo News on Twitter, or there's certainly other links as well. But you can just see there's some great benefits to this new updated wallet, and it's just worth knowing about as part of Neo News. The next thing is Da Hongfei. It will be speaking at a blockchain conference in Bangkok coming up very soon on the 4th of December. That's exciting because he's been quiet for the last month or so in terms of his presentations. And whilst he has been presenting, it's been behind closed doors, and this is a chance for people from all around the world to engage with Da. And it's important also, I had a look on their website, and he is the key figure on the website. So he's in large at the front. They're taking his presence very seriously, which is only a boon for Neo overall. So great stuff to see international blockchains happening and Da attending. This is more information as well. Basically, it's happening, there's tickets available, and you can go onto this website if you want to know more about it. So just some key news I found from some of the Chinese websites from Gold Finance was that this article was just positively referring to Neo. It was a good reference point for some positive news in the overall crypto space as well. And the crux of it was just saying that it essentially seems to be having a very good run recently, and they explored some reasons why and why perhaps Neo is a good investment in the future. So it's worth checking this article out, but I just wanted to present it to you so that you know that these exist. And obviously many Chinese people are reading them because that's initially in Chinese, which is great. Another piece of information, Da Hongfei will be speaking at the SwissNex China Future of Money event, and that again is reinforcing how influential Neo is becoming in the overall space, because Da is now reintegrating back into the public eye. Obviously that heavy blow we had with the ICO banning and all the drama that happened slowed things down a little bit. Now as we gather more momentum in Neo, you'll be seeing more of Da throughout the world in different presentations. It's great to see. Just another thing I thought I'd mention for many viewers who've commented, and again guys, I really try to respect all of your feedback and try to give you as much information as I can, but there are some times when I think it's better to outsource that information, and this is one case where many people have asked, how do I set up my Ledger Nano S and Neon Wallet? Well, I found a great post on GitHub, and this goes through all the different steps. So I'll be posting all the links for everything below, but if you want to know, it goes through everything step by step to show you exactly how to set it up. So sometimes people like to have videos, and I can recommend Bo from Cryptocurrency Australia. He's done an excellent video. He spent many hours presenting that. But if you prefer being able to go through our website and go slowly on that, this is another option as well. So two great sources and means of trying to get your Nano Ledger set up, or other ledgers if you have them. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to talk to you about was, this is perhaps the real meat of my talk today, is that while I was on Twitter, I found a link, and again this came from Mikkel. Mikkel is an absolute legend. I'll provide a link for you below. But Mikkel had referenced a key link with regard to some YouTube posts that had happened in Seoul. And if you look here, you can see NeoNewToday also did it as well, and they posted this. So in response to that, I went and researched and watched all the videos. There were 17 sort of mini posts up, and this is an example of the 17th. But I found right from the outset, right from the very beginning, and I'll just see if I can quickly pop across to one. I won't bother actually. Oh no, I will. So if I go back, I found clip 4 a really great starting point for some really good quality information. And you'll see here as it loads, Da Hongfei is actually speaking. And that is a rarity in itself. I'm surprised it only got 68 views. I think that's just unbelievable. But guys, it's absolutely worth watching. What I did was to help you all out, I've documented all the key points of all the talks right through from video 1 to 17. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about right now. And I'll give you some new information that perhaps you didn't know. So I'll just quickly refresh this. And sorry if there's spelling mistakes and stuff. I just wanted to get this information out to you as quickly as I could. So basically, if we start off with the first point, is that through Dar's talk, he's mentioned these things. Essentially, there was this meetup in Seoul that happened very recently, at the end of October, and Dar explained that there are two streams of income essentially for Neo, and this is cool to know. The first one is Bitcoin, because that's what the currency that they accepted when they did their ICO, and because of the growth in the value of Bitcoin, that's excellent, because they don't have to utilize the next stream of income, which is their second, which is a 50% stake of Neo tokens. So whenever they need to do developments and that sort of thing, they can opt for either of them. And as Bitcoin grows, they can sort of dig into that money rather than, reduce the overall pool of investment that they have set aside for themselves as a core team. The other things to mention are really good as well. For example, the city of Zion, many people don't know, and I certainly didn't know this before, but the city of Zion was actually funded by one guy in Boston, and he's a Brazilian. And he essentially made the city of Zion possible, but as a result, obviously he's invested in Neo, no doubt, by having done that. But what Neo did, to support him in his venture, is they offered 1% of all Neo tokens for the next 5 years, which equates to 200,000 tokens over the course per annum for 5 years. So 1 million coins in total, which is fantastic. Because as Dar had said himself, this means that the city of Zion can move away from a passive means of development into a more active means, because they can have full-time workers as opposed to part-time workers. So it's really great to see. Many different community groups are also supporting Neo throughout the world, not just City of Zion, so that's great. And there's many reasons for that, but you guys would know one of the fundamental reasons is that they are allowing for almost all programming languages to be usable on the Neo platform, and that's increasing with Python and all kinds of different languages that are coming forth in there, as the Neo team makes it possible in China. Other things to mention, this is really important. I promised a few people on Twitter I would mention this. There are some Neo dApps coming up that some of you would not know about yet. You know about RedPulse, you know about AdX, you know about Q-Link, but not that many people are really talking about Elastis, and Elastis is really important because it's going to put everything through the Neo virtual machine, and it will be using those things I talked to you about before, which are the NEOContracts. That's why that information is relevant. And they're also looking at a high-performance blockchain being run on Neo, the HPB. And Dar himself specifically spoke about this, and it was hard to sort of read into the visuals or see the visuals because they were blurry in his presentation. But I went out and I researched that a bit more, and I'll just quickly jump across to that. And it's just here, and then I'll flick back. So if you want to know more about HPB, this is the website that explains exactly how the HPBs plan to run. But if you scroll down as well, I'm pretty sure there's some more hints in there. Here you go. So if you look at there, Neo is one of the cornerstone investors. It's one of the key investors in the entire project, and that is absolutely massive because, again, this is a high-performance blockchain, and Neo can see the benefits of this investment. So at the very least, it should have a beneficial impact on Neo itself. So just going back to the other points as well, they're also working with, there's going to be a protocol products of Bancor and Loopring. So if you're not familiar with Loopring, guys, Loopring is essentially a decentralized exchange system. It has its own token. It has a lot of tokens in its design, but overall it looks like a really solid project. Neo is going to be using this as part of its protocol projects, but importantly it's also going to be using Bancor. And Bancor, if you have a look at its token structure, it doesn't have a lot in terms of its maximum supply. And as I understand it, Aeon is also utilizing Bancor as well as the Icon Foundation. So all of them can see the benefits. These three interoperable blockchains, they all can see the benefits of Bancor, and it's just something perhaps to look into if you haven't got that in your portfolio. Not financial advice, guys, as is none of the things I say, but it might be worth looking into. I personally did myself. Okay, moving in to the next slide. Roadmap for next year. This is some things perhaps you didn't know, maybe you did, and share, like, all that sort of stuff. If you and bring your info to the comments below, because that would be unreal. I'll certainly look into anything you want me to as well. But the roadmap for next year, the better governance model. So they're going to improve their governance structure and strengthen it. They're going to define universal data for wallets so it becomes seamless for users. So what that means is that they're just going to better integrate a relationship with all the current and existing wallets now, so that it's just simply a more seamless and more streamlined process for all of us as we try to, house and store our Neo tokens. They're going to also promote the ecosystem a lot more, and they're going to develop a legal framework. So that's really important. I'll just quickly fix that up. But that can't be understated, simply because their objective, and this is what Dar said himself, is not to be a cryptocurrency. It's not to circumvent regulation. It's actually to support the regulations by adopting them, by respecting the governments of the day and time and place. But in doing that also, they want to make sure that there's a framework set in place so that they can expand the ecosystem. They can have crowdfunding mechanisms put in place that are legal. So that's really exciting that they are developing that further. There's going to be a Neo DevCon next year in January sometime. And Neo Dar, if you want to hear him talk, go and watch those YouTubes. He talks about where that might be, but it's great to see that those sort of things are going to be happening. And also distributed ID, TheKey, that is coming up next year. And as I said, that is a very big project. It most likely will have its own token, so it'll be a tokenized project. There will be a dApp that'll append to the Neo blockchain. So very exciting stuff for the initial roadmap for 2018. Some of the key points Dar raised was trying not to circumvent regulation. So Neo is trying to establish an open source, transparent economy for tomorrow. Sorry, looks like I can't spell. We'll just fix that up. I really need to spend a bit more time on this stuff. So, again, sorry about that. So, transparent economy for tomorrow. How are they going to do that? 1, digital assets. 2, digital smart contracts. 3, digital identity. And 4, through their unforkable consensus mechanism. And Dar talks about that at length, but we really can't underestimate the value of this, because whilst many are averse to the trusted nature of this is the way to go, guys. I'm certain of this when I compare this to proof of works and even proof of stakes. Trust is sort of the way in which we're going, the road we're taking when we look at business and enterprise. And Neo wants to be a mainstay economy. They want to be a public blockchain that facilitates economic value and economic development. The only way that can even possibly happen, and for that to be interoperable with an enterprise blockchain like on-chain, is through things like this consensus mechanism. So it's just, it's really valuable, I feel, that's also one of the reasons why I invested in Neo. So the Neo virtual machine, again, that's another reason why I invested in it, is arguably the most detailed and most robust virtual machine out there. Its key features are it has great performance. Unlike almost every other blockchain, there's a couple of others that are doing some amazing speeds, but Neo can do 1,000 transactions per second and will increase in the future. And they suspect that will go to 10,000 by the end of the year, of next year. So Elastis and DNA are also using the Neo VM, and that's important because that means that the Neo VM itself is actually decoupled. It's not appended to Neo itself. And that just further strengthens the value of Neo, because it has such an incredible virtual machine that can be utilized in different means via a decoupled sort of a mode of adoption for different projects. The other thing to mention is dynamic sharding. Now that's going to be coming up. That's unrelated to smart contracts, but essentially it's about the smart contracts being able to execute in parallel, and that's going to be something that you'll come to know more. I certainly need to know more about the dynamic sharding capacity that Neo has, but that again was referenced in Dar's speech in Seoul. Smart contracts, again, 1,000 transactions per second. That is freaking awesome. One of the best speeds out there for a whole ecosystem. NeoX, can't underestimate that one. Again, that's the cross-chain interoperability. We've heard Malcolm talk about it. We've heard Dar talk about it. I've talked about it at length. But that is an absolute game changer, because it's going to bridge the worlds of enterprise and public blockchain. And that, when you consider that there's only 100 million tokens in full supply for Neo, that is only going to strengthen the value of every single token you hold. The first 10 gas also executed for a smart contract. It's important for you guys to know that that's free, because that's going to just be a really great carrot for small business. For more complex smart contracts, there will be a fee involved, but it's just important to know that the overall design for most general use is free. The next thing is Neo asset driven, not property driven. Neo Da talked at length about this. He used the analogy of a toothbrush being your property, but doesn't really grow in value. But then you have the shares, of any company, and they tend to, based on the robustness and of any economy or any business that grows. So he was making the point that Neo is about being asset driven. It's about trying to improve its value over time as it garners more support and more businesses append to the blockchain. Also, he talked about the value of liquidity, and he used the analogy of the US dollar. So that's also a key focus that Neo has. It wants to become a more liquid means of more liquid governance token, a more liquid semblance of value, so that people can, so that essentially Neo can better scale, because that's a key part of scalability. Digital identities, he talked about that at length. That's an absolute key cornerstone for Neo, and it sets Neo apart from many others, because they demand that digital identities be part of the overall design, so that again, it reinforces that trusted nature that underpins Neo, not only with its consensus mechanism, but by having some sort of system in place so that identities can be correlated with investors' tokens. The project, TheKey, mapping the ID of Chinese citizens, as I said before, that's currently part of a whole a major project in China, and certainly it has government support in that. Smart contracts are also automated to run agreements via trustworthy consensus methods. So you don't have that issue of disagreements and lack of consensus. The design is supposed to be pretty fluid and pretty smooth, in that it just it shifts to another block when consensus issues occur, rather than have to do things like the New York Agreement, which is absolutely ridiculous anyway. Okay, so then we go to on-chain. On-chain, very different, as you guys may know. On-chain's a business-to-business model. It's totally private, separate entity to Neo, but it's Hongfei is the CEO. He set up on-chain after Neo, and importantly, on-chain utilized certain aspects of Neo, such as the virtual machine, etc. So important to know that there are links to on-chain, despite that they are separate entities, and NeoX is the #1 thing that's going to bind them. Use cases. Certainly there are some in enterprise. As you guys know, Fosun is the key venture capitalist involved in on-chain, so it's entirely backed by venture capital. Identity change for locals, a clearing industry, enterprise, child company called LawChain involved, as I've mentioned before, and it's used to do attestations. So essentially it's used, and Dar talks about this, it's used to do some attestations that the overarching company of on-chain can't do. Neo is community driven, and that being said, recently a representative from Neo even went as far as to say it's a community project. On-chain is VC backed, as we talked about, but the ecosystem essentially is shared via the NeoX link, in that the NeoX will link the public blockchain called Neo and this is important, it's sort of one step further than I've gone before, it's going to link all the on-chain blockchains that are established on the blockchain network. So it's going to link them all so that they become accessible to Neo token holders, which is absolutely freaking massive. The next thing, Neo and the government. This is one of the most important slides probably, because we're always talking about questioning the connections between Neo and the government, because we want to hear those kinds of things. This is what Dar said directly. He said, if they love us, being they the government, then these are the things that are likely to happen. He said that because we're transparent, it's likely that they'll like us and utilize us. We have solid tech, another key argument that he explained, with their very robust design with all the tripartite elements, as well as the consensus mechanism. He's putting forth the argument that really displays the strength of Neo to the government. He also made the point that it's the oldest and the biggest blockchain in China. Now, Metaverse finds this contentious, but this is coming directly from Hongfei himself, and I tend to agree as well, given that Metaverse actually evolved after Antshares was established. Strong community in both China and the West. That's absolutely true with the communities we've talked about in the past. Also, following China's request, they are towing the line, and this can't be undervalued, the approach that Neo took, in that they made sure right from the outset that they were respecting all the decrees that the government put forth with regard to blockchain, and they followed suit. So this was a very prudent action on their part. Sorry about that, just had some camera drama. I'm just going to keep going, I'm not going to edit all this. So guys, the last thing I wanted to talk to you about was the last speaker of the YouTube presentation, and they were focusing on the regulatory environment. And that's important because essentially we are all concerned about regulation. We are all wanting to know what different people think about it. So this is what came forth. The crypto, my apologies for terribly shit spelling at the moment. So with cryptocurrencies, again, they're no longer the wild, wild west. The reason is because there's already measures put forth from many different countries to regulate them, Australia being one of them as an example, and many others have followed suit. It's highlighted the new borderless paradigm. Users are bound by national laws, and that's important. What they were sort of putting forth in their argument was whilst it would be ideal not to have regulation in the crypto paradigm. The reality is that is taking place in almost every key market that we see. We're seeing it in Korea, we're seeing it in Vietnam, we're seeing it in China, we're seeing it in Australia, we're seeing it in Canada, everywhere. Because these things are happening, it's important for us to sort of recognize what's happening independently in each nation. And for that reason, the argument is to look at national laws, understand them, and look at how that may be challenging the mainstream adoption of cryptocurrencies as a whole. This next year will decide if crypto will be banned and blocked from mass adoption by governments around the world. Now that's pretty dramatic, but that is what the last speaker was saying. I personally think that to a degree that's true, but also whilst ever independent nations are supporting it, there will be a degree of transactions and use within those countries. But yes, it's true. We do want to see mass support via perhaps regulation in these places just to consolidate its position as a market. So let's look at China, Korea, Indonesia and Vietnam, etc. The majority of countries are still undecided. Some countries have really embraced cryptocurrencies and blockchain. Asia, or perhaps Australasia, is ahead of the game in terms of regulation process. And the reason why I say that is not because I'm an Aussie and I'm probably a little bit biased. It's actually because the countries in the Australasian space have actually worked quite efficiently, and they were one of the first off the block to actually go and look at regulation. Australia really did it quite early, in fact, and for that reason, it sends forth a very strong message that they are very serious about the blockchain and where it's headed. And by having some sort of system in place, it means that it can integrate into the overall global economies and in global markets, and it can be taken as an independent economy. It can be taken quite seriously. If you want to focus on America, the speaker went into a lot of detail about America itself. They talked a lot about the mindset, the culture, the different viewpoint of how it's becoming a security through the SEC. They talked about IRS and tax concerns. That will be dependent on different states as well. He talked about how current profits from both fork coins and general growth is relevant. And again, much like Australia, under a certain small amount, in the US it's $600, in Australia it's $1,000 or something like that. But under a certain amount of money, it's not actually taxed, which is great. And we'll probably find that trend in many countries over the world for those that do adopt it. But if you want to know more, that was really beneficial to hear about. So guys, that's pretty much it for the video. I'll just flick back to this. If you want to go and check out this site, thank you so much to Crypto Assets. I want to plug you because you did an amazing job by posting all of these videos. So thank you very much, Crypto Assets. You're an absolute legend. Guys, that's it for me for Neo News. As you guys know, Segwit 2x being cancelled at this stage. That's freaking awesome for Neo because people were waiting to put their money in. You're going to see some growth in that just for that reason. But overall, I hope this information has been beneficial. I always enjoy speaking about Neo. There's so many cool things coming up. Don't forget to check out more information about the dApps. And until next time, guys, it's been great talking with you. It's BlockchainBrad signing out. Cheers.